We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by Line Movement. It is our Week 13 DFS first look. I can't believe it's Week 13 already, but thankful that we made it through, I guess, the gauntlet that is Thanksgiving week overall. Always want to have a partner in crime to walk through these slates for the first time. So, of course, our weekly guest, senior writer at The Athletic. Follow him on Twitter at AllInKid. Jake Ciely, how was your Thanksgiving / Week 12, my friend? How's it going?
Thanksgiving was great. It was birthday weekend, so that was good. And then Sunday came and it went to crap. Like, honestly, this is the first week I completely zeros. I didn't win anything this week. It's the first time all year long. And you know what? Part of it is just because of my job. So many things were going on with seasonal rankings. It was the first time I really didn't get a chance to check all my DFS lineups before, think over some things. It was the constant with the Hilton situation or Hinton situation at quarterback and all this. It was the most I've updated my rankings for seasonal ever in the history of, I've been doing this for a dozen years now. So it was just insane. So I didn't have any Derrick Henry. I didn't have any Tyreek Hill. And that's actually kind of really all you need to know. I didn't have either one of them. So done.
You needed it, man. I definitely think that there's many weeks where I'm glad that I'm not grinding projections and that sort of stuff. But this week in particular, like I got away from my screens a little bit on Saturday and I looked at Twitter and I was just like, oh my God, what is happening? There's just so much going on. I was like, I'm not even looking at the slate the rest of the day. There's no point whatsoever. Sunday morning is when everything is going to become relevant. Obviously, we always run a poll on these live streams. One of the first things we do on Mondays. And I kind of wanted to see where people's regrets are. Number one, Dalvin Cook, but not enough Derrick Henry actually beat Tyreek Hill, which I thought was interesting. We had a decent amount of Derrick Henry across the community. I was just telling you before we went live that I did end up on the right side of Derrick Henry, which was great. Was up like six figures at one point till I guess that second Justin Jefferson touchdown. I got a little bit excited, and then Tyreek Hill brought me back to life with what did he end up with? 60 DraftKings points. Of course, something random like that happens. Insane.
Ridiculous.
But,
and the frustrating thing. So, by the way, I think I had 3 out of your 5 polls there. That the options out of your poll.
All the regrets.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you, Thomas, by the way, for a late birthday. Yeah, it's just I was on a lot of Dalvin Cook, and I wanted to talk to you about that because in my mind, well, before we get to that real quick, I had a lot of Dalvin Cook. I was actually off Brian Hill. I picked up Ito Smith in a lot of my seasonal leagues and was off Brian Hill, and I had a lot of Austin Eckler, which was great. But the problem is, like I said, this is one of those weeks where if you didn't have Henry and or Hill, I mean, at least one of the two, if not both of them, you were probably out no matter even if you hit on a Hines or an Eckler or all just the solid plays. You needed one of them to like really make any kind of impact unless, which you don't do, you played cash. I mean, there's some opportunities there, but other than that, and if you play at anything at like Kyler or something like that, you also. What I want to talk to you about the Henry situation is because you said you were in on it. The Dalvin Cook is one I wanted to bring up because Dalvin Cook last week, it kind of feels like what I'm going to compare it to is fantasy baseball. Like in fantasy baseball, and this is the first time I really ever paid up for Dalvin Cook. And you remember the show last year, I always told you, like, I want to get Christian McCaffrey, but I didn't use him that much. Yep. And my counter argument has always been this. He has to do what he needs to do to make it worthwhile. Because even if Dalvin Cook yesterday scored 18, still at that cost because of what it does to the rest of your lineup is so prohibitive that there's no reason. And where I bring in the pitching for fantasy baseball is because when you have options like Derrick Henry, who are 1,000 cheaper, but kind of on their tier, it's, a couple of years ago when Kershaw was the guy. But you know what? You could go get a pitcher like Carrasco in the day when he was really good, but he was 1,000 less. But he's almost got that same ceiling, is why I should have stayed with what I've done for my entire career and just stayed away from Cook.
Yeah, so, I mean, I love Dalvin Cook as well. I had Cook everywhere. Obviously, that was what bogged down a few of those Henry shares. Honestly, like last week, like I'm kind of with you. I got a lot right for someone that didn't win anything big. If you didn't have Tyreek on teams, there's no way you were getting first place, obviously, but had a ton of Eckler, had a ton of Hines and Derrick Henry little mini correlation stacks, which was really strong. The way I'm trying to, like in today's DFS meta, I'm trying to really improve at if Derrick Henry or a player like that, Nick Chubb, like in his category of someone that, and to truly get there, they need to break off some big plays. They need to score touchdowns because they don't have enough through the air. But if those guys are sub 10% owned, like you can leverage so much on these slates when some of these failures do occur, especially on the cheaper end of running back. I was with you on Brian Hill. Wasn't extremely interested in him overall. Definitely preferred Hines. I didn't end up having any Gallman, but I guess trying to be a little bit different in roster construction, getting to Cook, Henry teams together, which I mean, in turn, I guess kind of buried me in some ways because I didn't have enough salary to get to guys like Tyreek Hill. But I guess like just more thinking of it from a tournament perspective than I have before with Derrick Henry is kind of where I've turned the corner. I'm sure he'll be popular in some coming weeks, and that'll be when I don't play him, and he'll just continue to roll like he always does in December. But interesting week overall. Any final thoughts? I guess could have been better in a lot of ways, but definitely glad Thanksgiving week is over in general.
No, I'm also the only parting thoughts I have in the look ahead is the fact that we have pricing. Even though we have the Tuesday game, I was concerned we weren't going to have the pricing.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either, and that was just a nightmare that one time. So let's jump into it quick. So quarterback, it is our DFS first look for week 13. We got Russell Wilson at the top. He's 7,700. Kyler Murray, 7,600. Priced him down a little bit, obviously, for this matchup against the Rams. We got Watson against Indianapolis at 7,500. Justin Herbert against New England, 6,900. There's a couple price tags I think that are at least interesting in tougher matchups. Taysom Hill against Atlanta again, only 6,300. Seems like a reasonable price tag for him. Fitzpatrick at 6K. There's some options here. But what do you think of the top end? Like Russell Wilson against the Giants, I would imagine is going to be super popular, right?
Yeah, and I'm not going to do it really for two reasons. Is again, Bradbury, who I've brought up a lot of times, and I know you don't play the corner matchups, but what he's been able to do is I would never sit DK Metcalf as seasonal. I think he's concerning enough that maybe DK Metcalf doesn't has 150 and 2. Now, to your point about ownership, if that concern see, this is where you can go both ways. I am somebody that does pay attention to these things and plays into my lineup decision making. But what you're talking about for ownership, if ownership projection has DK Metcalf in the single digits, then we're like, screw it, because he can overcome something like this. And that's where you have your advantage. But if his ownership's up about norm, that's where I'll fade. So that's where it comes into play for me. The Russell Wilson situation also is now you got Colt McCoy at quarterback. And I don't think he's anything of a downgrade passing wise from Daniel Jones, but he's not going to run like Daniel Jones. He's also a very short yards per attempt. This could be a game where the Seahawks are just running it out with Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde in the second half. I'm not that worried about Russell Wilson and the offense passing, but if they're up early, I mean, they could just be cruising in this one. So to pay up for him, if he's super popular, as you said, I would actually be off on him this week.
I think he'll be popular for sure. We'll see if people are willing to go back to like Evan Ingram on the other side of that game. Going to be an interesting one. I feel like we haven't had Russell Wilson on a main slate in a little while. So Arizona, obviously tougher matchup against this Rams team. So Kyler Murray getting a little bit of a price discount there is interesting. One thing just about quarterback in general that is another thing that I'm really going to try and improve on, especially in some of the smaller field tournaments, is being willing to play quarterbacks like Taysom Hill in situations where like I really like some of the mini stacks. Like we talked about Minnesota last week about like it's such a condensed offense overall that Jefferson, Cook, even Rudolph in like an expanded role without Irv Smith, without Thielen, getting those guys in, but then just playing a running quarterback naked that's cheap enough to where like if he just gets his like 15 points or so and you have that correlation, you're able to save for some of the other pieces of your lineup. So you're someone that definitely plays naked quarterbacks a little bit more frequently than I ever have. But is that something that I guess that you're kind of baking into that decision? You still want to have that floor from quarterback overall?
Yeah, I like to get the running upside. The thing is I actually skew the opposite of kind of what you're talking about with like the Taysom Hill. I haven't used much of any of Taysom Hill in these past 2 weeks. I haven't used much of any of Cam Newton this entire season because it's all running. They're essentially, for what everybody wanted to joke about Lamar Jackson, they are running backs playing the quarterback position. So if they don't get they need 2 rushing touchdowns to really hit your team. And that's the problem is, if they only have one, Cam Newton has 2 300-yard games this season. And I think, what is it, 1 passing touchdown on both of them, if I'm remembering correctly? I might even be wrong about that, but I know he's only got 2 300-yard passing games. It's just so rare that they do both when they're at that level. And I'm not going to bank on a quarterback getting 2 every single week, though. Taysom Hill's doing that's what it was. We were riding Cam Newton at the beginning of the season, and then it didn't happen, and you get 13 points. So that's why I'm kind of off on them. You stepped past the one guy who, if we were talking about him 3 years ago and what he's doing right now, 3 years ago, Aaron Rodgers is honestly in the MVP. I mean, 6,800 against Philly at home, MVP discussion right now. I was tweeting it out live during the game. The Bears heading into that game hadn't given up 20 points this entire season to quarterbacks. He had 18 before the end of the first half. I think he might have hit it by the end of the first half. They hadn't given up more than 2 passing touchdowns the entire year, and he goes and throws 4. Now, I know people are going to say Noah Akeem Hicks is a huge problem for that defense, similar to what it was last year. Even so, Aaron Rodgers is playing MVP ball. He's not the MVP, but he's playing that kind of ball at 6,800 against Philly at home. If I don't go Derrick Henry, I'll probably go on Rodgers and Adams together.
Adams expensive again. He's $9K. Probably worth it. I struggle with those wide receivers that are priced up there, but I definitely understand the equity of that type of stack. As far as some of the cheaper guys, if we move further down a little bit, Fitzpatrick still at 6K. I mean, that has to be it, right? Against Cincinnati, that's a fantastic kind of bounce back spot. Would he maybe not play? You think is Tua going to be back?
I mean, they keep saying Tua is the starter if healthy, which is weird because this injury has progressively gotten worse when they weren't even talking about it in the first place. So maybe he's not healthy, and I put that in air quotes because they're just kind of like, hey, you know what? We do have playoff aspirations here. We know Tua's not ready for it. I kind of think it might be not as serious. But anyway, if Fitzpatrick is out there, I think you have to play him. He's a great pullback with Devontae Parker because they have basically no other wide receivers. And then Mike Gesicki is finally relevant again. So, yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm not doing it because what just happened? We kept talking about him all year long. Derek Carr. He's the Jared Cook of Jared Cook of quarterbacks. We come all the way around, and finally people are on the Derek Carr train. And then, boom, in your face. Blows up. But you know what's going to happen this week? You get him at 1%.
Yeah. I mean, so my biases with Derek Carr, and I didn't consider him for 1 second, even though I agree with you. If you look at some of the advanced efficiency, real quarterback type of metrics out there, it'll tell you that Derek Carr is having a great season overall from an efficiency standpoint. It was a great spot overall. There were some people that were beating that drum last week. Thankfully, my biases just, I guess, got in my own way, and from that type of pain. So that was good. I did end up with a ton of fits, which wasn't great overall, but just taking care of tight end with a lower end or lower owned Gesicki was pretty strong. Anyone else at quarterback strike your fancy this week? I think that Herbert at 6,900 is still interesting against New England, but sounds like you got another one.
Yeah, Matt Ryan at home.
Okay.
Hey, look, with Matt Ryan. So something we talked about in our Sunday morning show that we do before, lineups and all that type of stuff, is we were talking about the fact that Matt Ryan, I think I brought this up to you last week. If I didn't, it was Pat's show. There's so many shows. Mm-hmm. But Matt Ryan this year, everybody kept saying, look at how bad he is without Julio. And my pushback was the games without Julio also happen to be some of the worst matchups you could possibly face this year, including the Panthers twice, which how many times have I told you this year, the Panthers pass defense is better than people want to give them credit for. So he faced all those games, top 10 passing defenses, including a top 3 one. And yesterday was the prove it point. Yesterday was a terrible defense with no Julio. So which is it? Is it Matt Ryan with no Julio, or is it the bad defenses adding to that problem? And Matt Ryan just stepped out there and proved it all had to do with the defenses plus no Julio. So even if he doesn't have Julio back, Matt Ryan at 5,600, and if he has Julio back, yeah.
I like it. He's cheap. He's definitely always a threat for the 300-yard bonus for sure. Let's move on to the running back position at the very top. Dalvin Cook still 9,500 against Jacksonville this time. I'm not sure how banged up he got in that game, but did grab his helmet basically as quick as they would let him. Seems like he's battling through something. It's like the Dalvin Cook scare seems to happen every single week. Hopefully he's okay. Derrick Henry 9,200 against Cleveland. I was gonna say he's 300
cheaper. What did you on Twitter? It was almost essentially December. Well, now it is December.
It is December. This game against Cleveland, probably going to be a ton of running on both sides of it. This is one of the first times I've ever seen 2 running backs in the top 3 in pricing in quite some time. So Nick Chubb is 7,700 right below him. So I think that is interesting just looking at the price alone. Someone just said it in the chat. You have to scroll pretty far to get down to Kareem Hunt at 5,400. So if you want to play the other side of that, Wayne Gallman still 5,600, I think stands out. Austin Eckler 7,100 against New England. These New England games tend to just play kind of slow and gross at times. But Eckler, last week, obviously there were some concerns with his workload. Still ended up with 10 catches, I believe. I don't even think it was 10 targets. It was 10 catches. So I like Eckler still at that price. And then
13 targets.
Yeah. And then your boy, Robinson. He's all the way up to 7,300. This is the most expensive we've ever seen him. So that's interesting.
I mean, it took the entire year to get respect put on that name.
Right.
What was it, like week 5 or 6, where I told you if he had Fournette on the back of the jersey, everybody would give him 7K and
Yep.
use him every single week in seasonal. And yeah, he's finally there. I think there's a lot of intriguing options here. Obviously, the Derrick Henry, like there's no reason to go to Dalvin Cook when you can get Derrick Henry for 92. This next stretch of 4 games is not just a December narrative. Like it's just he's also facing all terrible defenses. Actually, after this week, the next 3 weeks after this, all 3 of the defenses he faces are top 10 allowing against the run, including the number 1 in the Lions in that stretch. So I think there's some intriguing names in here. Speaking of that stretch, Green Bay, as we just saw, anybody can run on. If David Montgomery's doing what he's doing, anybody can run on Green Bay. Miles Sanders at 6,700. I got to, obviously see what he looks like tonight, but that feels like a very nice price for what Miles Sanders can do against the Green Bay defense.
I like Miles Sanders a lot. He was one of the names that popped up as like kind of the top of my model very early in the week. It seems like it's a great price overall. We'll see if we get Swift in this one. He looked like he was relatively close to play on Thanksgiving, but did end up getting ruled out.
Patricia's gone.
Yeah, exactly. So that's positive for sure. I think Swift might end up being like a standout play at 6,500. A little bit cheaper. See if Gaskin plays this game. I think that he would be somewhat interesting. There was one more that I just scrolled past and now I can't find it. Talking about the Thanksgiving game. What do you think the recency bias will lead people in terms of Gibson in a bad matchup against Pittsburgh? But he's 6,800. Do you think he kind of remains, getting the type of volume, or is it always going to be game script dependent for him?
I think the volume is pretty much his, unless they fall down super fast and are chasing a 2-touchdown lead the entire game, because those are the McKissick type games. So that would be a worst case scenario. And of course, Pittsburgh could do that. My concern more in this game is just because of the matchup. And Pittsburgh actually hasn't been over the past couple of weeks as good as they were to start the season against running backs. But at the same time, they're strong enough that Gibson, if you watch that game on Thanksgiving too, had a lot of nice holes and a much better defense. And I'm not taking anything away from Gibson, but talent-wise, and this is coming from a Gibson fan, mind you, he's not on the level of Dalvin Cook and, even James Robinson. Like, just James Robinson's a more elusive running back. Tony Gibson's great at what he does, but he needs some of those holes sometimes. And I just feel like the Steelers could clog it up a little bit. I'm a little hesitant. The price will probably have me on him in a few spots, but I'll tell you this, if his popularity is 15+% ownership, I'll be completely out on him.
Is Alvin Kamara even playable with Taysom Hill at quarterback?
No.
7K. I agree with you. I don't think it's
dozen carries and nothing in the passing. Forget the name. Telling you, if a running back's getting a dozen carries and that's all he's getting, you wouldn't be starting him. Period.
No. It's all name value at this point. I don't think we can
I do like your Kareem Hunt point, by the way.
He seems very cheap.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say on the flip side, Nick Chubb got more passing game work than we've seen in a while in this last game. So that's the problem if they are sticking with this now and maybe they're seeing something. Maybe Hunt's not 100%. Actually, that shot he took near the goal line, I thought he was going to come out of the game for the rest of the day. Good grief. But to what you're talking about for this matchup, if this is what it is, I think right now it's the highest line. But if this is an aggressive game and aggressive going forward, like Kareem Hunt, in these type of games has been as valuable, if not more valuable, than Nick Chubb. So to get that kind of a price discount, I do like the Kareem Hunt call.
Josh Jacobs, keep an eye on that ankle injury that he had against the Jets. Pretty good spot for him. Obviously, another guy that's pretty game script dependent. So I think that's one we'll keep an eye on. Anyone else at running back, Jake? You want to move
on? I think we can move on. You got me in the middle of taking a drink to wet the whistle over here.
Cool. All right. So at wide receiver, we mentioned it. Devontae Adams, he is 9K. DK Metcalf, 8,200. Keenan Allen, 8,100. So 3 guys that are above 8K on this slate. DeAndre Hopkins against the Rams and Ramsey, if you're going to tell me that that's going to be, an issue. 7,800 for him. AJ Brown, 7,600, finally creeping up probably to where he should be in this spot. Interesting, at the top. Still, Justin Jefferson. What does this guy have to do to break 7K on DraftKings, though?
I think it's the Kirk Cousins effect. We talked about this on our the waiver athletic podcast today, and it had nothing to do with Jefferson. The topic was, do we have to start respecting Kirk Cousins? And I said, this is the problem. Kirk Cousins, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Ryan Tannehill, all these quarterbacks like that. The problem is there's zero rushing upside, and we know this. This is why the pricing is there. That's probably the people on DraftKings doing the same thing with the pricing. We know in the back of our minds, when it goes bad, it really goes bad. We're talking 3 interceptions, 1 fantasy point, potentially negative fantasy points. Even you had the game earlier this year where Kirk Cousins threw for like 100 yards and 1 touchdown, I think it was, or something ridiculously low like that. We just know that the floor is so much lower without the running. And then to cut, to go inside, coincide with that is the wide receivers obviously take a hit. So that's why I think it's just a concern that Thielen should be back and that Jefferson, and if it goes wrong with Kirk Cousins, that's the downside. Plus, it's Jacksonville. I mean, how much does Kirk Cousins, if we said expectancy into this game, how much do we think Kirk Cousins is really passing against Jacksonville?
Sure. That's true. Yeah, I mean the volume is always an issue there. It feels like so I'm with you on that one. Just I like I said, I'm very into these like condensed type of market shares overall. So I think that's the argument. I think that price range is actually super interesting. We have Allen Robinson at 6,700.
There's another one.
Yeah, he's still top 10 in weighted opportunity. Seems too cheap.
I was hammering that one this past week. Everybody was just like, well, Trubisky's at quarterback. I was like,
so?
Do you not remember 2019? Trubisky was at quarterback. Allen Robinson was top 5.
I like that one a lot. Do you think anyone's going to go back to Terry McLaurin at 6,800? Like this Pittsburgh matchup just terrifies people, but the game script should be right.
Well, and the big thing about Pittsburgh this year is this is another one that we've hit a lot as bringing this point up is they are a very good defense, but the one thing they do poorly on pass defense is give up the big plays. Like you don't play the underneath game with them. So I'm a little hesitant McLaurin because that's where more of his value comes and he's more after the catch than he is going 20, 25, 30 yards downfield. So I'm a little hesitant. So 6,800 because I mean, just $100 cheaper is Allen Robinson, but Deontay Johnson's in this group. Devontae Parker's in this group. There's a lot of names in here. Like, are we going back to Jarvis Landry? I mean, he looks healthy for the first time this year. And Baker Mayfield, I kind of think Baker Mayfield is just, that's who he is. And he had tunnel vision for one game. But, there's just options in this range. I mean, Cooper Kupp is at 6,100 where I don't feel the need to get to McLaurin.
What do you think the chances are of getting Julio in this game, not as a decoy, I guess? Because 6,600, I've been like trying to, Overzet always talks about this, but playing these guys coming off of injuries, it's like literally you cut the ownership in half. Austin Eckler, no one wants to play him last week because we have no idea what's going on. You can even put, who is the San Francisco? Debo. Debo comes back in that game and plays really well.
Debo
also
destroyed them.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that those guys always are interesting. Kenny Golladay off of injury, those type of players. Super interesting. These Pittsburgh wide receivers on the other side of that Washington one, who would you, I guess, where's Deontay on this one? Deontay is 6,500, Claypool is 6,300.
Yeah.
I hate how much they're pricing up Claypool, man, because I always want to play him, but like the volume for Deontay is just so strong.
I mean, and to be honest about it, where's the Claypool 15, 21, 15, 14, 18. I mean, he's been pretty consistent for being the quote unquote number 3 on that team. I think the problem with him, and you're looking at it, I'm trying to find where was the game. There it is, the one against Tennessee, in a great matchup. Did he get banged up in that game? One for negative 2.
He did have one game where he did get hurt, didn't he?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. But yeah, that's the problem. Is like I'm always the Deontay guy. You know that. Just because he's the one consistent, one clear number 1. So we have tomorrow's game, as long as it happens to go off of, and maybe we get some clarity of that. But yeah, I think all of them are always in play.
Anyone on the cheaper side that stand out to you? Denzel Mims, again, leaving air yards on the field every week. I think we prefer Joe Flacco at this point for him to truly realize that, I guess, expectation. 4,100, decent price for him. A lot of people were on him last week. These Jacksonville guys still very cheap as well.
Can we get Minshew back?
Yeah, exactly. We'll see about that one. Slayton at 4,600 against Seattle, I think will be a popular kind of bring back in that game. Who else?
I want to do that.
5,600 still.
Brandon Cooks was the one I was going to bring up. To go back real quick on Slayton, Dan Dugan, the Giants beat writer for the Athletic, said there's something wrong with Slayton, that they're masking something because he hasn't been on the field 100% the past 2 games. Like his normal snap count is usually in the 80s, 90s. The past 2 games, he's been out there a lot less. They said he thinks there's something wrong. So that's why I would stay away from Slayton on that one. I was going to bring up Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks at 5,600. I mean, since his 0 has just been very consistent and very productive. I think that's a fun play right there. If you want to go with the Aaron Rodgers and you can't afford Devontae Adams, I mean, Al Lazard caught a touchdown. It looks like he's getting back to 100%. And then go back to that Houston game. I love my boy on the Phillip Rivers side of the ball, Michael Pittman. A little bit of a down game for last week, so people are going to come off of him, and now he's 4,900 still.
I like that call. Pittman's like a guy that Harmon brings up like every single week as just being like a straight baller. Like at some point, he's gonna continue to kind of be, I guess, an asset for us in DFS, probably at lower ownership as well. I'm not seeing
He
a
still had
ton
9
else.
targets.
Yeah, that's true. So if the volume is there, right, I still feel like people are probably a little bit disappointed with that one. What are we doing with Jarvis Landry after that blow up game last week? I feel like there's just going to be a ton of running in this Cleveland Tennessee game this week, though, right?
That's part of the reason. I mean, we jokingly, that's another thing. We jokingly talked about that on the waiver show this morning, is that this might be as fast as last week's Broncos game was. This might be a 2.5, 3 hour game with just running on both sides. The downside to that is fewer snaps, and all of a sudden this game is just, 40 plays on both sides of the ball.
DJ Chark, if active at 5,400, any interest in that one?
Yeah.
Yep.
If Minshew's at quarterback, that's it.
I had to get you to mention.
I'm not screwing around with Mike Glennon.
Yeah.
Nobody at quarterback for that team matters to me unless it's Minshew, and that's not even my Minshew love. It's just, let's be real of like what Mike Glennon and Jake Luton and all these guys are. It's just, no, I'm not doing it.
All right. Anything else at wide receiver that you're looking at? Maybe on the cheaper side. That's pretty much all the guys that stand out to me, at least at my first look here.
Yeah, I was scrolling down. I was trying to find. Oh, there they are. Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. Oh, 4,600.
What do we do with those Cincy guys now? Are we out on it completely?
No, I will take a chance on T. Higgins again. Just T. Higgins seems to be like Tyler Boyd got his. That was actually the number 1, number 2. AJ Green got a few opportunities in that game, but Miami, if it is Fitzpatrick, I wouldn't do it as much if it's Tua, just because of what it does to the offense and actually slows down the game a little bit with Tua. But if Fitzpatrick's back at quarterback, and assuming that the Dolphins are going to do what they do against the Bengals defense and be able to score, then I would say Higgins and Boyd are both in play. Predicting which one it would definitely be, that's the tough part. But at 4,600, they're worth taking a shot on.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to figure it out if we want to play. If I guess we get Fitzpatrick, and we're gonna need a bring back on the other side of running those stacks back a little bit. Wow, Tyler Lockett 7,400. I thought they'd give us a little bit more of a discount there, but this Wilson stack is gonna be extremely expensive, so that'll be interesting.
It is, but that's the one I would bring it back with Lockett, is because the Giants, to go back to the Bradbury thing, have been doing a really good job against number 1 corners. The reason they're still, if you look at the overall number, susceptible to the pass, is because the rest of the secondary sucks. So you just beat them up with number 2s.
Play DK Metcalf. I don't care who he's playing against. Tight ends.
Hey, that's certainly fair.
Tight Darren Waller 6,100. Obviously, a lot of people on him last week if they couldn't get up to Kelsey. Didn't really work out. Evan Ingram still, like, they don't want to raise his price after a big game. Hunter Henry, very condensed at the top in terms of salary at tight end. They just keep, I guess there's really no edge in just like paying all the way down, all the way up, because it's so tight. So that's kind of interesting. Eric Ebron 4,400. Dallas Goedert 43. Gesicki still seems like a reasonable price point at 4,200 to me. Tanyan, if you wanted to go there, another guy that Rodgers seems to really like. He's 3,700. 5 receptions in the last game on 5 targets. Did get is that right? A rushing touchdown in that one? That can't be right. Anyways, he got in the box. But I think that Robert Tanyan is at least interesting in that game environment if you didn't want to pay all the way up for Devontae Adams. But any thoughts at tight end so far?
If you want to go cheap, I'll go back to Kyle Rudolph, if no Irv Smith. In that matchup, that's a great opportunity, but it would have to be no Irv Smith, especially because Thielen should be back. I'm interested to see what Will Dissly does tonight with no Greg Olsen. I actually have Will Dissly in a couple seasonal leagues, playing him for the opportunity. I just don't know if it could be Jacob Hollister, because that's what the Seahawks do, but they do regularly use the tight end. So I'm going to be interested to watch that. If you're paying up, I kept saying it, like, I hate to use him, and I wasn't using him the first 6, 7, 8 weeks or whatever it was, and it worked out until he started getting that volume, where the fact that Daniel Jones wouldn't stop throwing to him and Evan Ingram became in play. The risk, obviously, is, does Colt McCoy give him the same treatment? But Colt McCoy, again, is a short yard passer, so Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram should still be their guys.
We kind of saw Ingram just like finally start to get some deeper targets too. It was like, okay, let's go. Like Evan Ingram, like starting to get the usage that we know he's capable of turning into a decent amount of fantasy points. So that's frustrating. We'll see if people, I guess, go back to TJ Hawkinson after he had a good Thanksgiving as well. Just looking at targets per route run, Darren Waller still just like running away with it on this slate overall. So any interest in going back to Darren Waller against the Jets? I don't know. Hopefully he gets his touchdown because that's a tough price tag for this guy. Where I would assume they're
Well,
going to be
the
way
good
ahead.
news is he's leading everybody in red zone targets, so
True.
that helps you there. Darren Waller, honestly, how different is he from Mark Andrews? And I think that's how you have to figure it. And you can look at his game log. And I'm
Mhm.
going 6.3, 22, 6.7, 13, 7.7, 17. It's finding the opportunities. Again, Derek Carr was a huge, huge bust across the industry, whether you play DFS or seasonal. But that's why, I mean, you're going to get people out on Derek Carr, and those same people are probably going to be out on Darren Waller. I'm not saying play Derek Carr for sure, but if you can get to Darren Waller at 6,100, that price is not that prohibitive. I mean, this is the same point where it was Mark Andrews 59, which was like $200 less when Mark Andrews had his game.
What about Jordan Akins, your boy, 2,900? Kind of burned some people, I think, on Thanksgiving, but the target share before that was pretty nice. So I think that like these tight ends, if they end up just playing more two tight end sets, still always a little bit interested, but I'm just trying to see anything below 3K that's even playable on the slate, to be honest.
Yeah, Jordan Akins has a really bad matchup too. The Colts have been
Hmm.
one of the best teams against tight ends this year. So if you're going down this far, I mean, I've gotten to the point, honestly, I don't know about you. I've gotten to the point over the past couple of weeks where I'm not going this far. I
Hmm.
pretty much have been stopping around the high 3,000s, low 4,000s. I've been playing recently. Hooper, I had Hooper last week. So there's another one. I mean, he hit big. He got a touchdown on those at 30 or 40 yards, but I had him at a decent price. I had Kyle Rudolph in a lot of lineups at a decent price. So,
Yep.
hit enough, but again, it wasn't enough to overcome not having Henry and Hill.
Right.
But I think you can kind of settle into this range where you don't need to get necessarily like if you can't afford Darren Waller, I would say don't go that far dumpster diving. And that's really what it is. I'm not going down to the 2s and 3s because even at this point, if they get a touchdown, some of these guys, who was the one that caught a 6-yard touchdown? And he finishes like tight end 16 this past week. I'm trying to remember who
Well,
it
I mean,
was.
even Gesicki only had what, 2 catches in that game? Just one of them was for a
It was
touchdown.
a
So everyone,
touchdown.
I mean, so he was
Dawson
fine.
Knox.
Dawson
I mean,
Knox,
one
yeah,
catch, 2 yards,
that's all you
and
need.
Adam Shaheen, one catch, 7 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is like that's 8 points, 7 points. That's still not even with the savings, and you get that it's still not enough to really move your team's needle.
Yeah, but I guess there's still some guys here, I guess, that can put up decent scores. I guess keep going back to the we're 2 weeks removed from the Tom Brady week where like 2 of the top 3 tight end scorers had 1 to 2 catches and a touchdown. That's all they needed. So interesting. Goddard 4,300, Henry, like it doesn't pay a lot to increase your upside, which I think is pretty much what you're saying, right?
You're right. Well, and Ertz could be back too.
Yep.
So that's something to monitor.
Interesting. $3,900 Ertz. I don't think I can pull the trigger on that one, but I understand it. Maybe Hayden Hurst. If we know Julio, he's only 4K still. There's some options. Maybe it's not as thin as I originally thought.
And Hayden Hurst got he got his 8 targets. It just was a game where there wasn't a lot going to him necessarily, just because everything else that was working for Matt Ryan, and it was working for Matt Ryan.
Yep. All right. Well, that's pretty much all I got at tight end. You got anything else?
No, just first bad week. Let's bounce back. Not you. You had a better week than I did, but first 0 on the board. There's nowhere.
Hey, sometimes you need a 0 to feel alive, my friend. Tell the people about the Cyber Monday deal at the Athletic, and we'll get you out of here.
Yeah, if you go to the Athletic, it ends tonight at midnight. So it's $1 a month for an entire year. So basically, Tom Brady or Allen Robinson get you the entire year's worth of content. So if you go to theathletic.com/line movement, you should see the deal. If you don't, click over to one of my articles. It should be there. But yeah, I don't know how this is a special Cyber Monday deal, so I don't know how exactly that works. But in any case, yeah, $1 a month for 12 months, which is just unheard of.
That is absolute banana land, my friend. Man, week 13 already. We made it. We made it through week 13. All downhill after Thanksgiving for sure. Make sure everyone's following Jake on Twitter at AllInKid, and definitely check out that deal going on over at the Athletic. Jake, best of luck, my friend. We'll see you very soon. All right.
Yeah, same to you.
All right, Jake Ciely, everybody. How's everyone doing in the chat? We made it through our first look. Interesting slate overall. Seems pretty condensed in some of the positions for sure. Definitely paying all the way up for Derrick Henry at 9,200. We'll see if I have the stones to do that one. A bunch of people in the chat right now wanted to start mentioning this directly after some of these segments, but one of the things that we've been really building up in our community is our Patreon. So this is something that we started, I think 4 or 5 weeks ago now. It's hard to remember at this point. Everything just feels kind of like a blur. But all the conversation that's happening throughout these live streams, throughout these segments with our great guests, definitely want to continue that off of stream. So the way that we're doing that is our exclusive Discord chat community, all the people in there throughout the week talking fantasy football, daily fantasy sports, sports betting. It is $1 per month to get access to this chat, 25 cents per week. But we do our best to bring you as much value as possible. One of the things that we are doing is our weekly DraftKings tournament. We've been giving away a $30 Amazon gift card, which has been definitely something that has been fun to the winner. We have an NFL Red Zone stream room in there, so you can go in there, watch Red Zone with the group, kind of sweat the games together, which has been fun. And then an exclusive 15 to 30 minute live stream directly before NFL kickoff with myself, something that doesn't go on YouTube. My final thoughts, some may say, on the slate, answer some final questions. One of the things that I did want to bring up, I guess, as a hashtag announcement here in this one. So like I said, we've been giving away a $30 Amazon gift card to the winner of this tournament. This coming week, we're going to do it a little bit different. I'm going to be putting $1 into the pot for the winner for the Patreon contest for every single rating and review that we get on Apple Podcasts. So go back, check the tape. We're sitting at 42 ratings right now for the Joe Holka Show. For whatever amount that we get to at lock Sunday morning, you're going to add $1 to the prize pool for the Patreons for that contest. So a little bit of a different motivation for you guys. I think it'll be really cool if you're a part of the Patreon. Who knows? I mean, takes what, 2 seconds to drop a five-star rating and review on this. Maybe we get up to like a $200 prize pool for week 13. A little bit of my way of giving back to you guys. Obviously, it was awesome to hit 10K subs on YouTube. It was really cool to give something back to you guys. I thought that would be a good thing to do overall. If you're here for the first time, would love it if you consider subscribing to the channel. Toss a like on this video. Let me know in the comments who your favorite, let's just say this, who's your lock of the week on DraftKings so far? We just did our first look. Let me know who you guys are on this week, and we'll see how big we can run this thing up for the Patreons. All right, talk to you guys soon.